This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, good morning again. And this is session 15 of Wandering Through the Big Book. And we are in the chapter called We Agnostics, chapter 4. In this presentation, I will remind you that whether we're going through the steps ourselves or trying to help another to do that, we're considering step 1 to be doctor's opinion, Bill's story, there is a solution, more about alcoholism. And then step 2 is We Agnostics. And then steps 3 and 4 are in chapter 5 called How It Works. So we're into We Agnostics. And I know I've said often that one of the great lessons of my sponsor was learning to loosen up my mind by word substitution, and that different when the book would say something, it particularly made, he said every time the book talks about your drinking, you can substitute your thinking and the sentence will make sense to you. You'll be able to make some sense of what it's trying to tell you. And that worked, you know, it got me focused on how deceptive my very own thinking is. And of course, that leads to the huge challenge of his challenge to me of, you know, your thinking had to sponsor your drinking. Our problem is if we take the first drink, we're screwed because we react to alcohol differently than other people react. And we don't get a choice about it. We may think we have a choice about the first drink, but we don't get a choice about what happens after that. The body takes over and demands that we drink more till we run out, pass out, or black out. And but understanding my real problem is thinking, and my problem in particular is I want to think I'm smart. I really do. I want to prove that my thinking works. And yet he kept saying you must have had a strange mental blank spot, because my life's been pretty good, that denied the reality of the allergy. I've said before, my plan was to stop with drink number 3. Drink number 3 got me where I wanted to get. I didn't care about anything. All the stuff wasn't bothering me so much. I wasn't in fear or whatever. But somehow drink number 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 kept happening, you know, and he just pointed out, as smart as you want to think you are and as powerful as you may think your mind is, you could not see the allergy. Now, I've always been impressed. Bill Wilson says, I saw that I could not take so much as even one drink, he says in his story. Well, that's not my story. I never saw that. Never saw that. For 50 years of drinking, I drank. You know, I got in here at 63. So, but then he said the one that's even harder, that every time the book used the word alcoholic, I could substitute agnostic, and the sentence would once again make sense to me. I could understand that. And the power of this is that it really brings home the truth that we say bottles are only a symbol. The truth is that bottles are only a symbol of my faulty thinking and my need to self-rely, because I don't have anywhere else to go. I don't have any relationship with whatever this thing is that you're talking about, whether you use the word God or higher power or spirit of the universe or whatever you do. You know, I can hear it, I can believe it, but I have no experience of it. All I've got is the experience of my self-reliance. And then the book says something on page 68 that is just striking for me, because my life was totally fear-based and my drinking was totally fear-based. When I was feeling good, I drank because I wanted to keep feeling good. When I was feeling bad, I'd drink because I wanted to somehow feel better. But I was always drinking on fear. And this thing says the real reason you fear I mean, we'll get to this later on, it's page 68, is because you know somewhere down deep your self-reliance is failing you, that your self-reliance is not bringing true the promises that it makes to you. I didn't really see this. I was in this program. I got to think when this happened. This would have happened somewhere in the late 2017, maybe. You know, I had a beautiful boat down in Chesapeake Bay, and I'd go down there in the fall and the spring and run around Chesapeake Bay on this gorgeous boat. So my mind's telling me, oh boy, 2 weeks to go. We're going down there. We're gonna have just a great time. My mind's promising me a great time. You know, I got all my books and blah, 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 blah. So I get down there, I get off on the boat, and I'm sitting in an anchorage. I'm the only boat there because it's fall. And I'm so freaking miserable. You know, I got to hang out with me. I got nobody else there. You know, it's just me, and me is miserable. I mean, something's always wrong. Something always could be better. Something's not quite right. I don't know, a bunch of different stuff. But that's when I almost wanted to say F you to my own mind. You know, you keep promising me how life is going to get better. I was a certified public accountant doing people's taxes. So my mind would tell me April 15th, you know, as soon as April 15th is come and gone, we're going to be happy. You know, life will be great. There will be no pressure. April 15th would come and go, and I'd have about a 3 or 4 days of relief from pressure. And then boom, shoo, just like a cloud, you know, my own thinking comes, my own thinking over which I am powerless. You know, that's the real problem, is I am powerless over my very own mind. It has habit patterns. It goes in certain directions, whether I want it to or not. I didn't learn this till 2018, 19, and 20, when I went into the worst and longest depression of my life. And I couldn't do, I saw psychiatrists. I tried antidepressants. My sponsor asked me to double up on everything, meetings, interact one-to-ones with alcoholics, service commitments. And the two real lessons out of that were my powerlessness over me, my powerlessness over my own thinking, my lack of power over my own thinking. And I got no alternative. I mean, I know the book. I know the book as well as anybody I know. And I know what the book's telling me. You know, you got self-reliance over here, and you got step 11 saying, ask God to direct your thinking, and especially ask that your thinking be divorced from self-pity, self-delusion, self-seeking. The big stuff of the human ego. I can say it, but I can't do it. I still can't do it. I have to I have to cozy up to God, and then I got to say, well, here's what I'm thinking. You know, what are you thinking? Because I have yet to, I mean, sometimes when I read spiritual literature, I feel like that's a way I can ask God to direct my thinking, because it's challenging me with stuff. But, you know, I've never felt God direct my thinking, but I sure have learned how to get confirmation, or the opposite of confirmation, by going, here's what I'm thinking. Can you give me a red light, a green light, or a yellow light? I'm able to make that work. Doesn't mean you can't, but it works. It's visual, it's non-intellectual. I'm just asking red, green, or, you know, stop, go, or maybe, or let's talk about it. So I don't want to get too far off of here. So I believe that, for me anyway, page 25 lets me know that I only have two choices. Now, most of us, the idea that I only have two choices, that's not really a a workable idea. We tell ourselves we got lots of choices. How It Works talks about half measures will avail you nothing. All those different lines. I'm blanking on the one about the results are nil until we let go absolutely. I still haven't let go absolutely. I am experiencing some results, but what's that line about? We stood at the turning point. We asked God's protection and care with complete abandon. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I mean, I don't believe I've gotten close to that, except when I'm feeling something positive and I go, well, this feels pretty good. Maybe I'll try to give myself to this some more. I said the third step prayer this morning on my knees at my bedside, as I want to do every day, don't always do it. And today, for whatever reason, I added and took away some words. And it was good. I mean, to say it, just not, I mean, I can memorize and I can say the words, but to say them with feeling, that's another thing for me. I'm getting way off. So let's see. So I believe that page 25 is saying you only really have these two choices. One is going on to the bitter end, trying to blot out of your mind how miserable your life is. And the other, to accept spiritual help. Now we've changed that in the opening readings, because the second line comes from page 83, where at the end of amends, before the ninth step promises, it says, so we ask our Creator each morning in meditation to show us the way. I got to be shown the way, because I don't get it from here. This thing tells me, number one, look out for number one, that's me. Selfishness is my answer to most every fear I have. I'm ready to go when the airplane people say, get that oxygen mask on your face first before you try to help anybody else. That's me. Give me that oxygen mask. So what I'm trying to say is my only alternatives are believing my own thinking, self-reliance, believing my own self-reliant thinking, and see where that takes me, which is just like taking the first drink. It's a lot of thoughts will follow. I take the first think, and my powerlessness over my brain is going to lead me down certain ideas, and whatever fear I may be working on is going to get horrendously worse. And I'm going to die a lonely death in physical pain. That's where my mind takes me. And I'm going to be lamenting what a useless life I lived. I couldn't take advantage of the wonderful opportunity to see a sunrise or a sunset or the weather change or whatever. So my choice is believe my self-reliant thinking or ask God to direct my thinking. That's it. That's it. And my life will flow based on which choice I'm able to make. And I want to say, I am powerless at the beginning of this process to ask God to direct my thinking. I'd like to tell you I can do it, but I am powerless. My thinking mind is so big, it's so loud, it's so obnoxious in a certain way, I can't not hear my own thinking. So for me, the work of the steps, the difficult, challenging work of the steps, and particularly once you're through 5, the real action of change starts with 6 and 7 and 8 and 9. That we all we've done is take stock in 4 and 5. If you really want to change, you got to get serious about praying for removal of character defects and asking for redirection, and then doing what you're told to do. This whole thing for me comes down to step 3 saying, first of all, you got to quit playing God. And next, you've got to invite God in. And then third, you got to do as directed. And I don't think that is any different than if we humbly rely on God and we behave the way we think God wants us to behave, we will experience spiritual serenity right smack dab in the middle of the calamity. It never promises us the calamity will ever go away. And believe you me, as long as you've got millions of human beings living on their own self-reliance and the whole society reinforces that self-reliance, calamity will take place. As it has been for thousands, literally thousands of years. The drugs have gotten stronger, the weapons have gotten more destructive, but the basic selfish life, selfish, self-centered life has not changed a bit. A bit. And it's why I think that we who have, I was going to say found our way, we who have wound up in the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous and take this work seriously and try to get our personalities in a position to try to become the people God wants us to be, I believe we are one of the most powerful forces for good on the entire planet. And I think any of us that have experienced any kind of liberation from the demands of a human life, and that we do feel that we can abandon ourselves to God's care and protection and direction, we have a huge debt to repay both our Creator and the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous that got us here. And I've gone from going to meetings with my resentments ready to go. Boy, as soon as this person starts sharing about that same old stuff they always share about, you know, I'm going to start wagging my finger. You're not doing your job. That's not your job. You know, I've mostly gone to meetings to get. And since the pandemic, and since we got off of Zoom, and since we got live in our little home group here in Camden, Maine, and since we had a bunch of new blood come in, new blood is so important. Old timers killed this process. I'm sorry to say that, but you know, usually groups, they get stagnant and they get controlled by the old timers. And the old timers are just trying to maintain their comfort zone. They're not into improving conscious contact. They're into maintaining their whatever, their comfort zone in whatever way it is. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be so. That sounds pretty negative, doesn't it? Anyway, I started looking around the room at our little home group here. And, you know, God, 3/4 of the people were under three. We have a beginners meeting. We defined beginners as less than 3 years. It was 80% beginners, 90% beginners. And our group has never been better. In my participation, it never been better. There are more people trying to help each other and trying to work through this process. I'm on a soapbox. I gotta get back to work here. So at any rate, I don't even know what I was saying. So you know what to do whenever I get confused. I go to the book. Can't go wrong going to the book. So this is our third session on We Agnostics. We have been, well, I know what I was going to say. Sorry. Quit playing God. Oh, I already said that. Invite God in, do as directed. That is no different than humbly relying on God and trying to be the person you think God wants you to be and doing whatever that takes. It's just the same thing. The word humbly is just showing up more and more to me as both the gateway and the hindrance. my inability to be humble, and or the reverse, trying to get to humility. And one of the quickest ways, I know we talk about this a lot, but one of the quickest ways for me is to use the word my creator, the third step prayer. So we said to our maker, as we understand him, and then blah, 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 my creator, seventh step prayer, I am now willing that you should have all of me. Well, my human personality wants to take credit for my own life. And I'll tell you why. I want to take credit for my own life because it means I can do what I want. If I go, my creator, whoa, hold it, stop. And the problem here is that we all think our creator is our parents, which they are in terms of the body and the mind, but not in terms of the spirit. God is the creator of my spirit, my soul. So when I'm going my creator, for me, it can bring me out of this vantage point of I created myself, I get to do what I want. And I want to want, take, feel good all the time. That's my game plan. My creator is, whoa, what do you want me to do? Why am I here? And I think that this chapter is just amazing in the way it gets to that stuff. And just one last thing, you've heard this before, but it's just so good. I wish I could take credit for it. If you're struggling with the idea of whether or not you created yourself, don't you think if you did create yourself, if you had a hand in your own creation, you could have done a better job? Whoop. Oh boy. Yes, I could. Yes, I could. I could have done a better job. So, okay. So the first session, we read pages 44 and 45. And then the second session, we read from the middle of 45 to the middle of page 46. So I just want to go back to that, the last paragraph before we stop. So the last paragraph that we read was, yes, we of agnostic temperament have had these thoughts and experiences, and referring to the paragraph up above, which I want to point out. We were bothered with the thought that faith and dependence upon a power beyond ourselves was somewhat weak. Did you ever look at people that were praying and go, well, good for you, but I don't need to pray. I get everything I want just based on this or whatever. That's weak. You got to pray, even cowardly. But this is what I wanted to read, because this is agnosticism. We look upon this world of warring individuals, warring theological systems, and inexplicable calamity with deep skepticism. What is it? Contempt prior to investigation. Agnostics, the original definition meant it's impossible to prove the existence of a spiritual reality called God with a physical body and a mental mind. Right? You can't prove the spirit with form and concept, because it's out of their league. Agnostic now seems to mean doubt about God, skepticism about God, and skepticism about people who claim God or talk about God or claim a relationship with God. How could a supreme being have anything to do with this inexplicable calamity? And yet in other moments, we found ourselves thinking, who made all this? How'd this all come into being? There was a feeling of awe and wonder, but it was fleeting and soon lost. And then this paragraph, we of agnostic temperament, we've had these thoughts and experiences. Let us make haste to reassure you we found that as soon as we were able to lay aside prejudice, that's contempt prior to investigation, lay aside prejudice and express even a willingness. This is the importance of steps 6 and 8, the willingness steps. Express even a willingness to believe in a power greater than ourselves. We commence to get results, even though it was impossible for any of us to fully define or comprehend that spiritual power, which some of us call God. Wow. Much to our relief, we discovered we did not need to consider anybody else's conception of God. In fact, it won't work. You know, that's one of the points they're making on page 45 or whatever it is. We watch a guy get all excited as we talk about our program, and then we watch his face fall as soon as we bring up God. You know, it's like, yippee, maybe my life can change. This can get, and then, yeah, well, it's going to take a relationship with God. Oh, Jesus. Sorry, Jesus. Oh, sweet Jesus. Okay. Much to our relief, we did not need to consider another person's conception, our own conception, however inadequate. You know, the spiritual appendix says all you got to do is not close your mind to all spiritual concepts. The reverse of that is, if I can have even any one little bitty, eensy, teensy, weensy, teeny tiny spiritual concept, that's enough. Any dance will do. I heard a line the other day that I thought was so wonderful. I won't remember it, but okay, so you don't believe in God, but you fear God, or something like that. I wish I could remember it. Anyway, okay, sorry. As soon as we admitted the possible existence of a creative intelligence, a spirit of the universe underlying the totality of things, we began to be possessed of a new sense of power and direction, provided we took other simple steps. My sponsor was always a bugger about, about asking a question, provided we took other simple steps. Well, what simple steps are those? What are they referring to? And I believe for me, it's quit playing God, invite God in, do as directed. I have to do all three of those things. The quit playing God is the humble reliance part. That's where I get humble. I quit playing God. We found that God does not make too hard terms with those who seek him. To us, the realm of spirit is broad, roomy, all-inclusive, never exclusive or forbidding to those who earnestly seek. It is open, we believe, to all men. I think this is a great model for a home group, that we are to be broad, roomy, and all-inclusive, that's our job. Welcome and hope, if you get to be a greeter, welcome and hope. We try to, it doesn't usually happen, but we try to have a male greeter and a female greeter, and we call one of them welcome and one of them hope. So your job is the welcome and your job is the hope. And that's what meetings should be. Especially if you want people to leave better off than they came in. Never exclusive or forbidding. So open to all men. Okay, great. We're shifting to page 47. Woo-wee. When therefore we speak to you of God, we do not mean our conception. We mean your own conception of God. This applies too to other spiritual expressions you may find in this book. Do not let any prejudice you may have against spiritual terms deter you from honestly asking yourself what they mean to you. My sponsor did not do this with me, but I've heard of it being done, and I think I need to do more of it. What do these spiritual terms mean to you? Asking somebody when I believe that the step 3 decision, which we'll be talking about eventually, is a decision to accept spiritual help. right when it says you got two alternatives, the bitter end or accept spiritual help. Initially, the third step decision is the decision to accept spiritual help. The question is, how am I going to do that? How are we going to help somebody do that? And when you're in step two, and step two it's a simple yes or no question. Do you believe, or are you even willing to believe, that there is a power greater than your mind and your body? That's all. That there is. Not that you can make conscious contact with it, not that it can run your life, any of the other stuff. That's all it is, that there is. Now, I believe there's a second part to step two that didn't really come to me till I was in this depression. And that is, can this power that I'm saying yes or no to restore me to sanity? It's really hard to think about that step if you think you're sane. And it's very hard for most of us to admit our insanity. But I'm telling you, when you wake up every morning and you want to kill yourself, you are insane. So after 10 years of pretty hard work in here, I'm finally admitting I'm insane. And now the question is, can this power do something about that? You know what knocks my socks off is most of us recognize that today we are not obsessed with drinking after however long we were when we go back and look at how much our lives were based around the next drink. They're totally obsessed with it. And that we're not thinking that way anymore. And that we didn't do that. It isn't like I just suddenly decided I'm not going to be obsessed with alcohol anymore, So why is it? Why is it that we can acknowledge that this power has removed the most compelling obsession compulsion we've had in our lives for some period, whatever it was, and then we decide, well, it can't do that with this other thing. It can't do that. I heard a guy talk about pagels or pagels. I hadn't heard that term. Paggels. Pride, anger, gluttony, greed, envy, lust, sloth. A traditional way of naming character defects. So am I going to sit here and say, well, yeah, God can remove my obsession with alcohol? Doesn't say he's removed the allergy. Doesn't say that. Doesn't say the allergy will not still affect me if I take alcohol. My body will demand the next drink. But it says my mental obsession for the relief that alcohol brings to me, that's not going to be there. Most amazing thing to me in this depression was I never thought about drinking. And I was more miserable for longer than I had ever been in my entire life. I lost my train of thought. Anyway, these pride, anger, greed, gluttony, envy, lust, sloth. Where do I get off saying, well, yeah, he can remove it can remove my obsession with alcohol if I will ask for it, if I will pray for it. Why can't he remove this particular character defect, whether it's pride or any of those other ones? Why do I stop short and I don't pray? I mean, that's what the 7-step prayer is doing, except it adds in this little twist of, I pray that you now remove from me whatever is in the way, not of my serenity, whatever is in the way of my service to you and my fellows. And you're promising me that if I will try that, I will be able to match the human calamity with spiritual serenity. So where do I get off saying, well, yeah, it can do this, but it can't do that? And the only answer is because I don't want it to do that. I don't want to really stop drinking, or I don't want to really stop experiencing pride, anger, greed, gluttony, envy, lust, sloth. I had a really good thought in there and I've lost it. I'm waiting to see if it'll come back. Okay, let's see. Okay. From honestly asking yourself what they mean to you. So I'm suggesting that we have conversations about what do these spiritual terms mean to me. I was in a great meeting yesterday. We were reading this first part of the book, We Agnostics. And I tell you, and it was great. Went around the table and everybody talking about their conception of and their relationship with this power greater than themselves. At the start, this was all we needed to commence spiritual growth, to begin growing along spiritual lines, to effect our first conscious relation with God as we understood God. The end of this chapter, this guy named Fitzmayo is going to say, for the first time, he lived in conscious companionship with God, with his creator. You know, that's the first, there are a bunch of miracles, you know, a miracle that I'm not thinking about drinking, miracle that the conviction that God has entered into my life for real is the most important fact of my life. You know, that's a step up from feeling the obsession removed. And then you get this idea of living in conscious relationship with God. Well, that's another bump up for me. Because once I have some kind of confidence that I can go to this power, it's not just that it's there. I can go to this power and it can restore me to sanity. That's a step up. And then my favorite in step 5 that I've had glimmers of, I don't usually feel it. We will feel as though we are on the broad highway, really going somewhere, not a lot of bumps in the road. It's a broad highway. This was written long before interstates even existed. We're on Interstate 1, right to God. We will feel as though we are on the broad highway, walking hand in hand with the spirit of the universe. How about that? Wow. I'd like to feel that. Okay, let's see. And then we're gonna stop. First, conscious relation with God as we understood God. Afterward, we found ourselves accepting many things which seemed entirely out of reach. I don't know about you. I know, you know, I've led a highly intellectual life, and I've thought about lots of different stuff and read a lot of different books and blah, blah, blah. And a lot of this stuff has been conceptually delicious, but way out of reach. Especially when you get to Bible chapters, and especially some of the Old Testament, Isaiah and those people that were, you know, they had they had a direct line to Mr. Big up there. And you know, well, never mind. So to effect, let's see. Afterward, we found ourselves accepting many things which then seemed entirely out of reach. You know, good for you, but that's not where I'm at. That was growth. the opening up of the mind, the lessening of contempt prior to investigation, the one thing that prevents all spiritual progress. That was growth. But if we wish to grow, we had to begin somewhere. We got to start somewhere. So we used our own conception, however limited it was. We needed to ask ourselves but one short yes or no question. Do I believe? Do I now believe? Or am I even willing to believe that there is a power greater than myself? As soon as a man can say that, as soon as a person can say they do believe or is willing to believe, we emphatically assure you they are promising us. This is a second step promise that you're on your way. It has been repeatedly proven among us that upon this simple cornerstone, so my friggin' sponsor, what's the simple cornerstone? Well, in this case, it's a willingness to believe, a willingness to grow along spiritual lines, a willingness to stop practicing contempt prior to, stop relying on my own judgment. Start asking, this is what I'm thinking. What are you thinking? Let's see, he's on his way. It's been repeatedly proven among us that upon this simple cornerstone, a wonderfully effective spiritual structure can be built. So next time we're going to start with this appendix, spiritual appendix. It's referencing it here. So we'll do that. So I just thank you all so much. I had fun the last 2 Sundays, but I really love this, and I'm glad you're all here and appreciate your attention. And so I'm going to stop this recording and we'll have some open discussion. Oops.